Welcome everyone, and let's have a little moment to see who today is lucky to get a notification from us because today's guest is with us for quite a time, and he is a director of Adamski Foundation. And this is really probably like 60 years old foundation, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it was created by George Adamski to actually deliver truth to people about what's really going on in the stars and who's really visiting us and how does it really look like and what we don't know but we should know about. So in this process now, the last one on the board is now someone special who is continuing with this foundation and let it go on. So I would like to introduce you today the director and the author of multiple books about topics that we are all so much interested in. So please welcome everyone warmly, Glenn Steckling. Warm welcome to you, Glenn. I'm so glad you're with us again.
Yes, Joanna, it's been quite a while. It's a pleasure to interact with you again and your listeners and talk about a subject which I believe is of ultra importance, and especially to expose some truth versus all the misinformation that is circulated out there.
Exactly. And I think the notification let people know. So I welcome everyone who is with us today because this is really unique time when you actually can ask Glenn directly a question on the chat. We are seeing the chat is on our right side too. And you can directly ask him a question. But before that, of course, we're going to dive into question you already asked us on the Polish side. So we start, maybe we start with a little bit of the update. So you were with us, you were telling us great stories. And for those stories, I invite you to the past videos with Glenn on the channel. There are multiple already with so interesting stories. However, it's been a while. We know you are a pilot of American Army. You were having extraordinary contacts with aliens also as well. And you told us so many stories. So maybe just a little bit update from you. What was going on those past, I think, 1 or 2 years we didn't see each other?
It's been a couple of years since we talked last. Just to clarify, because I am a very stern stickler for accurate information. I was not a pilot for the American military. I never served in the military. I was an airline pilot for many decades, and I retired several years ago. I think the last time we talked must have been, at least 2, if not 3 years ago. We did 5 programs and probably over 10 hours of information. So we now we now can reopen that box and take a look in there. As far as what I've been doing since we last talked, just after we talked, I released another book called The UFO Reality, Can Truth Prevail?
Thank
And
you.
you have the cover there. And it's a substantial work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much appreciate. Yeah, that really touched my heart. Yeah.
And so it is an accumulation of a huge amount of information, of archives and documentations and authentic photographic records. And so it was well received in Europe. I have since had it published in Italian. My Italian publisher released it. And he is also now working on redoing it in Spanish as well. And I also have a different publisher who is working on the book in the French market in France. And so multiple languages. The word reaches hopefully a large crowd of people who have interest in what work we do and what we have to say. We are uniquely different
Mm.
from what is being promoted and perpetuated out there in this UFO field of late. And so I think that anybody who is looking for accurate information and just not hearsay, I never approach the subject by saying, well, I said so, or I got it from somebody else. Well, I try to have self-involvement so that I can relate to people who listen from a firsthand perspective and not from he said, she said, or maybe they said sometime that can't be verified and what have you. So I feel that I am able to address the subject from the strongest position rather than the most obscure.
And to help you to do that, please, everyone, if you're seeing this, pass this information, pass our videos to others so they can actually have the correct information, because there's so much misinformation. I have so many questions now today considering what's true, considering aliens. People are really misled because in age when we have AI and every 5 minutes somewhere there is put video with alien here, alien there. And that of course is something fancy, but also it plays with our imagination and then with our perception. Once it's playing with our perception, we don't know what's true anymore, what's not. And then those files can get lost. And to not allow it, every time you forward this video to another 10 people, that will help us a lot. And of course, if you would like to have this book, now you have access in other languages. Is it going to be in Polish or also?
I have not sought a publisher for that in that language. I submit the book and they review it. They're also doing it now in Asia, but I think that there's a large concentrated resistance to the exposure of information because it doesn't sell as well with those who are looking for the fairy tale land, the fantasy, the horror show rendition of what is being said. And we're very easily sidetracked, as you mentioned with AI. It's easy to fake things now that is so good that very few people can tell the difference. The problem is, of course, is that those who are out there talking about this subject have no foundation of their own, so they cannot determine what is accurate and what is not. So consequently, they grab the whole basket and pull it in and throw it back out. And then everybody thinks that just because so-and-so said so, then it must have validity to it. And they don't realize that since these people have no experience, no foundation, no facts of any kind, that they're just basically regurgitating others' information. I give you an example. Recently here in the US, we have a program concerning disclosure. And in my book, you will see that I have a chapter that deals expressly with the fantasy of disclosure. And
yes,
so I watched the program and I applaud the efforts of people, but overall, there was nothing there. In other words, there's a huge effort to erase or whitewash past UFO history. And so, because we want to rebrand it, we want to call UFOs UAP so that there is a disconnect in future generations with the previous classifications. And so, if you look, you will find that this type of effort to go to the government and to expose the UFO reality was already conducted in the early 1960s by Major Donald Keyhoe and Admiral Hillenkotter, who were both working with a organization called NICAP. And they brought over 12,000 files before Congress. Speaker McCormick, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Gerald Ford, Barry Goldwater openly stated that as a general, that he couldn't even gain access to the information. So this same type of activity was already conducted then. Then it was done again in 1968 before Congress with Dr. James McDonald. And then to some extent, it was done in 92 by other personalities and what have you. And so what has happened is nothing has changed. Nothing was revealed. So, to say disclosure, well, let me show a few videos of what our pilots have taken. This is all old news. And not only that, it doesn't answer anything. It doesn't disclose any true factual information behind it. Right? It creates even more mystification and more questions and doesn't answer anything. And so I found the program myself very nondescript.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to use, they pull out CIA so-and-so and a military officer so-and-so and educated academics so-and-so. They were trying to validate what is being shown and said by replicating it through so-called personalities that are supposed to have some type of stature, because everybody wants to be told the truth. They don't want to go out and look for it themselves. And so they're hoping that President so-and-so or so-and-so and so-and-so is going to spoon feed them the information and the truth and reality. And as I said to some of my colleagues, I said, do you really think that they're going to admit anything that's valid? The only thing they kept saying is, well, we've seen ships and we know that they are piloted by non-humans. Well, they don't claim to have contact, so how the heck do they know they're non-human? And why do they push a non-human agenda constantly? Because we want to perpetuate the thought that anything that comes from outer space has to be non-human. And I think that is a grave mistake, a grave error, because we really don't understand anything that's going out in space.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this thing with disclosure, and I've been trying through my own YouTube channel. If you look under Glenn Steckling, you'll see videos that we did that show the Adamski films and talk about different subjects and photo analysis and things like this. So there's a huge plethora of information available that we have put out. And as I said before, there seems to be more receptivity in Europe and somewhat in South America, because here in the United States, things are very suppressed.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was also my one of the questions already. Of course, what do you think about that? You answered that already to us. But it's very, very weird that nothing is actually said and there is no conclusion. Yeah, there are some files, and actually through that time you showed us much, much more.
Oh yeah, there's much more information.
There's much more in your foundation. That's
Yes,
I actually
yes.
wanted to buy it, right, from Georgia.
Well, when my father went to the Pentagon and spoke before Colonel Freeman and his staff, Colonel Freeman had a history in the 1950s of trying to open up and expose the UFO situation after the 1952 July incident, where these flying saucers flew in formation and performed aerial maneuvers over Washington, D.C. And so they were photographed. It was printed in front page news. So Colonel Freeman was extremely interested and wanting to let information come out. When he saw the films my father showed him, he said they're some of the best he's ever seen in civilian hands. And in the book that you showed, it has a description of that meeting, not only at the Pentagon, but also with NASA and 22 scientists at Goddard Space Flight Center. So I wanted people to see that there was an immense amount of history, an immense amount of knowledge and fact that circulated in that time on a level quite unlike we have today. I mean, I had the opportunity around 2013 or so to go to be invited with 4 scientists out in the southwestern United States. These people were well known in their field, the top-notch people, and we talked about this situation for a period of 3 days, and we had many interesting discussions. And you know, you don't see much of that anymore, simply because it's too easy for these marketers and well, there's a word we're familiar with in Europe, shyster. There's so many of these people that run around and, you know, make claims, and once again, you're supposed to believe them because who they think they are in prominence. And so in reality, this subject is much more focused and much more dealt with in a real and cognitive, factual manner, and that people aren't seeing much of that anymore, or they just see the magic.
I actually have a question about that. So all this time, you know, maybe I will be able to show it a little bit. That was taken a long time ago. The cameras were different, and people asking why we don't see them right now when we have such great cameras. Right now, we can take any phone and just click it, and we don't see it. And it's
we do. The thing is, the pictures are taken, but they're not distributed, and so that's the issue. We don't see them as much because the level of activity is lower today than it was during certain specific historical times for very specific reasons. But the idea is that photographs are still taken, film is still taken, and if you follow the subject, you will be able to see some of that. And yes, everybody walks around with a phone, but you have to look up and not down in order to see something. And everybody's looking down, totally mesmerized by this hypnotic device called their cell phone and their personal PDAs and everything else. So it doesn't help in some circumstances.
Okay. I had myself quite interesting things. Like, of course, people can dismiss it as it's a cloud, it's nothing, it's hard to see. And really, like, the clouds were, they were looking like a clouds. And you have sort of pictures like that, like here, almost something like that. I saw that recently in Barcelona a few months ago.
Yeah.
And of course, I took a picture. I have it somewhere. I posted even on Facebook. And normal, I think, is this rationalization of people. They say it always just a cloud, Joanna. It's nothing special. And shortly after that, we see lights in the sky. That happened to me a few times, like lights. And anytime I point it to people, they tell me, Joanna, there is a party somewhere there. I'm sure that's why the lights are traveling.
Well, they come up with a million excuses, but they never come up with the proof behind the excuses. They can blurt anything out of their mouths, but where's the proof? And so consequently, you can call it.
There was no party when it was like on the shore, and it was really hard to locate it. But of course, if I'm told by 30 people, and then, you know, I'm taken as a stupid one. But I'm testing everyone. I'm testing everyone because I'm very much interested in our perception, how our perception is connected to what we believe in, and we are unable to see the truth because of this, just because of this. And we have so many facts, so many proofs, like the truth is right there in front of us. Question, why do you think their activities is lower than before? Is it really so, or we just don't see it? What's going on with that?
Why? Well, there are specific reasons. The huge amount of sightings that came in the late 40s and through the 50s had to do with many different things. observations during World War II. The pilots of the squadrons reported these devices on both sides, both the Allied and the Axis side. So it wasn't just one group of people. And so we had come to the nuclear age in November of 52. We exploded the first hydrogen bomb. So there were a number of events that occurred here on our world that drew the attention of those who were traveling space, because our activities set out ripple effects of energy into space, which of course affects their ability to peacefully travel on lanes of magnetic force without having disruptions. So think of it as an earthquake type of situation where the rumbling and the whole system of space has cataclysms in it where the instability causes issues. And so this gathered their attention. They came to see what was going on. They noticed that we were right on the verge of many different things. We could have gone to a more progressive state, or we could have descended into chaos, and they were watching to see where we would go. Adamski took President Eisenhower in 1954 out here in California to an air base in the desert, in which he met these extraterrestrials. He came back down and landed. That has been talked about. Where the story goes totally divergent and into falsehood is at the description of what was going on. Eisenhower talked with human beings that were piloting these ships. Mm-hmm. And they offered to say that they offered him that said, if you're willing to dismantle or cease your atomic activities, we will give you some technology that will help you in the future development of your civilization. And Eisenhower turned it down. And what others in this field have done is that they have taken and twisted that story and said, well, these were, either tall grays or tall Nordics or short grays or some kind of monstrous things. And they wanted our DNA and they wanted our blood and they wanted this and this. What absolute garbage. Total garbage.
Are you talking about the show? Actually, very good one. I watched this one. So I'm curious what is actually true or not is true in this show, because what you just said about going to underground, meeting underground extraterrestrials.
It wasn't underground. It was on the surface at the Air Force Base.
Okay. So in this TV show, the Blue Book Project, it was set underground, and it was a scene that I do remember to this very moment, that it was a contract between this alien race and humans, and for that they were doing those experiments on humans for the exchange of technology. No. So this is false.
It's totally false, and it's been because we have decided to promote an agenda. Remember, this is information that comes out after the fact. And after the fact, anything can be injected and put into it in order to redirect the emphasis of the entire situation. So what happened is that we ourselves, our intelligence communities, whether it was the Air Force or the CIA that took it over in 1953, they had total control of manipulation of information. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to use fear as the catalyst and of against UFO contacts. In other words, the UFOs came to all our military and religious and government organizations throughout the world, and they contacted them. And they gave them information, the proof of their existence and their abilities and what have you, thinking that, of course, our leaders who are responsible to answer to us are going to give us the information. And they found out that this wasn't so. They were going to cover it up because they don't want the changes to this world to occur. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, our own facilities have developed this creature feature in order to scare the heck out of everybody and to make them believe that they're in danger. And also to perpetuate the idea that everything that comes from space isn't us. So consequently, you know, we are then the lab rats, the experimental animals, which is total nonsense, complete nonsense. And we are the ones who are projecting our own actions. We would take extraterrestrial and chop them up into goulash and examine everything. We would conduct horrific experiments, and we do in our
Actually,
biological lab.
that was showed. That was shown. Was that real? That interview with the alien, was that real?
Oh, it was not real. It was a total nonsense. And anybody can develop anything and put it there and say, look at this. Remember when the first alien autopsy came out? I remember I was in '95 in Europe lecturing in Dusseldorf at a UFO conference. And that so-called video broke. And I said to the proprietor, I said, don't use this. This is false. And of course they don't care, because this is a marketing and profit situation for them. So of course they blurbed it everywhere. And shortly thereafter, after they examined the film in a more quiet voice, it was revealed that the clock on the wall was from much earlier era than the so-called autopsy occurred in the 1940s. And so the whole thing fell apart. But every so often, some fool tries to resurrect it, hoping that the people at this time will question things less and just accept what they see as being all new. In the UFO field, what you find is old information constantly regurgitated in order to keep the public's attention and to continue to mesmerize them. And that's very, very dangerous. And I'll tell you one thing, Joanna, I know for a fact they're never going to disclose, because the very first fact would be, how do the ships work? The ships work on electromagnetic energy. Well, what's that? That's free energy developed by the planets. Each planet develops it and radiates into space, and you can use these lanes of force to travel on. Free energy means no oil. It means no rubber, no economies based upon the consumption of oil, and it would totally collapse our entire system. Only just one mere little tiny thing, propulsion. And so they're not going to release that. I mean, give me a break. They're not cutting off their own foot so that they think that they can manipulate you. Remember that when the UFO community, the academics, McDonald went before Congress in '68, I believe it was Congressman Rumsfeld, Donald Rumsfeld, who became famous much later as being a Secretary of Defense and what have you, who made the statement when asked, and he said, the people do not need to know. So your own officials are saying, we're not giving it to you. And if they do give you information, most of it's redacted or blackened. So, and remember, they go through everything, right? As we know with military, you sign secrecy papers and confidentiality papers.
Yes.
And you don't say anything that they haven't pre-approved. Well, if they pre-approved it, well, that tells you right there it's going to be garbage, because they're not giving you any truth. They're not going to expose themselves.
That they know everything. They actually have free energy. Yes. I suspect they do have. Of course, I don't have a proof. We officially, we don't know anything. But can you tell for sure, because you had actually contact? Absolutely,
yes. With George Adamski, we met his contacts, his space people, and we had conversations with them. They would come to the house occasionally. They helped my father produce his first book, Why Are They Here? Spaceships from Other Worlds, that was released in 1969. And we had interactions for many, many years thereafter. When people ask me, have I seen them recently? I'll say no, because I think the last contact was about 15 years ago. But
why? Could we?
Why? Okay. Why? What difference does it make? How much more do I need to have? right? I've seen them, met them, I've interacted with them, I've seen the ships, I've traveled the world, and I've seen them both as a professional pilot and otherwise. I mean, how much more do they need to give me? There's nothing. I have all that I need.
Here's actually interesting thing, because there was also an interview with Samuel, who met the author of this Tiayobia prophecy, those Taigetans or those other species that he was taken on the ship. And the author of that book, he got very depressed after that. He described everything in his book. But Samuel find him in another country. He left his wife. He got divorced because he couldn't really come to his life on Earth. The level of life, how everything is manipulated here, it just doesn't agree with him to the degree that he could not find a purpose anymore on Earth. That's pretty interesting. And
well, that doesn't apply either, because first of all, there are races of extraterrestrials. There are not species. There are no reptiles. There are no crayfish. There are no manta people. This is all fantasy, because if you know the slightest amount of background into biochemistry, all the biochemists will tell you that is all garbage, because the sequencing, the RNA and DNA, the organic molecules, the compounds that create life are the same whether you go step off of this planet or any other planet across the cosmos. It permeates through the entire womb of space. This womb of space is where the planets are created, and these materials bombard and flow through the atmosphere onto the surface of the planet so that life can evolve. So we have this whole notion, well, we go there and we go there, and it's going to be different hot and different pressure and different this, because we have total ignorance. And the ignorance is that the planet becomes inhabitable for the human genome at a certain point of its development, just like we didn't have humans here for a certain point of our development. And so consequently, we throw everything out the window when we think that outer space is there. And so first of all, when somebody tells me that they've interacted with all these different 150 different species of extraterrestrials, I go, "Quatsch, that's nonsense." And every biochemist I've ever had talks with will tell you the same thing.
Tell us.
Done. And so when we talk about interactions, when somebody tells me they beamed onto a ship, I know right away they're liars. Because you cannot beam sentient beings from one spot to another. You can beam non-sentient devices like rocks, chairs, mechanical devices, things like that. But anything that has a soul to it, whether it's animal or human, you cannot beam, because you cannot reconstruct the energy of that soul. That is unique upon yourself. And so all these science fiction replays of stuff is all telling you that this is not so.
So the Star Trek actually teleporting from one place to another human being is not true. That's false information.
Well, it's science fiction. It's just a program. People are taking science fiction literally. When the science fiction, when the show Avatar came out, then people within a week started running around and says, "Oh, I saw an extraterrestrial that's all blue and got a long tail." I mean, people have, they have nothing upstairs when they start to do this kind of stuff, because they wish to live a fantasy. Like you mentioned before, this person says that life was too difficult here and I don't have a purpose. Well, life creates a purpose for everything. There's no such thing as no purpose. So your destiny, your purpose comes from the creation of life, the creator of life, whether you want to call God or whatever name you want to give it. And so it doesn't come from anywhere else. And it's with you everywhere you go. So if a person is confused and has a misconception of something, that doesn't have anything to do with aliens. That has to do with a person who has some, psychoanalysis that may need to be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we don't know what this particular author saw, but when I had this interview, I actually could perceive the energy of those beings, and they were very friendly. Of course, I have my own visions and the dreams or perceiving because of what I'm doing in life. But at the same time, I check that with people. Otherwise, of course, I don't have any other proof to what I'm seeing or what I'm sensing. Is this is exactly what people are perceiving. But perception is very tricky. That's why we always have to check it and observe it. So when we have this observer mind, we can see that. Tell us how the aliens that you were encountering and talking with, how they were looking like.
Like you and I.
Exactly. It's
Mm-hmm.
very important. So
Mm-hmm.
the most alien races out there, actually, what people are saying that they had an encounter, were looking like humans. So more they call it like Pleiadians because they look like those Nordics. That's more like a people-like, not reptiles, not other mantis, because there are many people talking about it. So it's very, very hard if people are so convinced. We also had a lady from Australia who was telling that at night to the, children, she's a therapist, and children were actually drawing the same paintings of aliens. And these were looking different. They were looking like combination of humans and animals, like lions, like grays, like different. So what are we really dealing here? Because definitely there is something to it. If so many children and parents are scared, frightened, what's really going on, are coming to a therapist, and those children, they don't know each other, are actually showing those pictures, then is this another race? What do you think that is?
Called imagination. You're bombarded by it on television 24/7. Every day, every week, every month, it's projected to you. And what's projected into you, into your perception and your brain, it's done already through the cartoons with the children. We poison the minds of our people every opportunity we have, and then we wonder why it becomes effective. Also, you have such a huge amount of so-called psychiatric professionals who have decided that they want on this bandwagon, and they have no issue at all projecting their type of belief systems or whatever agenda and thinking that they have upon anybody they can get their hands on. If you look at my book on the chapter of abductions, you look at Susan Clancy, who is involved with the University of Harvard and the studies that she did, and she shows you the mental parallelism by people. And the more people who do it, the more replicate it, and the more copy it. And then everybody starts saying, oh, look, all these people are doing it, so it must be real. Well, you've got all these people who believe the earth was flat, and you believe the earth was hollow, that the moon was a hologram, and so on and so forth. Just because people want to believe it, that doesn't make it true. And the more monkeys who are running behind it, everybody thinks, well, I need to run behind it too. And so consequently, it's so easy to manipulate the thinking and the minds of the people. I give you an example. The big case that happened in Africa with the school children in the schoolyard when one of the ships landed. Some of the children drew bell-shaped crafts and people coming out of it, and other ones didn't draw so well and they drew something else. So what did they show on the program? They showed 90% of the stuff that was corrupted, and they hardly mentioned at all the other group of children who didn't agree with that, what was being shown, and didn't depict that at all. So we have become very purposely selective in order to promote an agenda that is going to be contributing to what we want to do. And so, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's really not that strange. I mean, you go watch one of these stupid shows that Spielberg or any people who these put out, And then they wonder why they dream about aliens for 3 days. They can't get any sleep because of this huge beast that's chasing them around with the big jaws and the driveling mouth and stuff like that, because it impresses upon your subconscious. And then when you start to allow the subconscious to come through, whether it's a night or when you go to sleep and you're supposed to calm down and your thinking is supposed to stabilize, and all this stuff comes through, I mean, the greatest hypnotic device in the world is that television.
Yes, yes. It's very important what we are talking about right now, because perception is actually like it's the key and the portal here to understand that we can be tricked. Our perception and imagination can be tricked. And this is also studies by Joe Dispenza and any other neurologist, that what we think of, what we imagine, it's also psychology, self-fulfilling prophecy. And also the courses and what I'm doing also with people, manifesting your reality, is exactly about that, to withdraw your energy from what you don't want into creating a vision of what you want. And if you keep on seeing it, reliving, of course, it's gonna be sort of like you're gonna live it. And eventually you're gonna make psychologically different choices. So you're probably gonna go a better life in your life. It's very psychological. It's also working on our functions, our hormones work better, our neurons fire differently, so we can actually switch that reality. But the perception and the self-belief and system, like bombarded by, I would say this is like a black magic in wording, spelling us every day, constantly in information through internet right now, because most of us watching internet, that, oh, this is not possible, this is not possible, oh, look at that, believe in that, don't do this, do that, follow this rules, we tell you the truth. So if you hear that 100 times, even in a day, it's like a bad affirmation. So people, like on automatic pilot, must believe it. So what you are talking about, let's assume it is like a consciousness, like a collective consciousness. Like, you know, it's in a Jungian philosophy, what he discovered, it's like a certain symbols means that, like a book of dreams. If you dream about flying, you, for example, want freedom in your life. It's like a collective consciousness that we are tapping into. Maybe because we are non-local, or you think about someone calls you. There is like a natural telepathy between people. We perceive each other. We just don't do it enough consciously to make a more actually research about it, more science. At least maybe it's not enough yet. But I will tell you one incident, and I'm very curious because I'm looking at those from different perspective. I cannot prove what I'm seeing. I only can prove it when I'm telling people what I'm seeing in my cards and my vision, and they are confirming that to me. So I always say, when I read tarot, don't tell me anything. Let me tell you, and then you will know. Because otherwise, how are they going to check if I'm telling the truth? So it happened also a long time ago on this channel. I had a lady, she was telling that Pleiadians are coming to her. They are visiting her constantly. And one of the night, I had a very weird incident here. So something metallic was like waving around my ears and introducing itself as a Saint Mary. That I should open up, receive the message, because it's Saint Mary, you know, like religious thing. And it was feeling very metallic, very unfriendly, and very disturbing, like I had a noise in my brain, you know, like noise in my head. And it was sort of painful. And I woke up. I say, okay, I don't want to dream that. I wake up. And I look at my phone, and that lady at this hour, it was around 2 a.m, she wrote me that she just spoke to Pleiadians and they are coming to me right now. What do you think about that?
What is there to think about that? How do you know it's Pleiadians? How do you know that it's not the intelligence community?
Exactly. You know? What was that? My question is because there was something, but it's very different from the friendly people from the stars that you met. It's very different.
Well, all I can say is that there is a dichotomy between the understanding of people, no matter where you go. So there are those who are not so friendly, but there's a baseline upon which they operate. In other words, you do not just acquire technology to travel space, which is many thousands of years ahead of us, without developing sociologically as well. And so if they are not all the same development, that's to be expected, just like you would not have all the same development of people here on this world. And so, you know, human life takes on a wide variance of adaptability. You go to the Kalahari Desert and you have the bush people, and they, you know, 3.5 feet tall, 4 feet tall. And you go somewhere else and you have the Watusi, who are 7.5 feet tall. You have people of different skin colors, eye colors, hair, all of that. But they're still human beings. They still have the same development, arm, leg, feet, eyes, everything else. And so just that same differential also exists in mental capability. I think that what we don't understand is we project our own barbarism upon something and somebody else. In other words, we have no problems in our laboratories, our biological, chemical laboratories around this planet, about doing horrific experimentation upon animals and human beings as well. And we have for some time. And so we have created mutants, and we have done some very nasty stuff. And so since this is our mentality, we automatically project that upon anything or anyone who supposedly comes to visit us, because that's how we would act. And that does not give credibility to those who have advanced far beyond our so-called low level of existence and what we portray. We have had many savants and sages who have come over the eons and told us the same message: know thyself and you shall know all things. And if that holds true, which it should, that means that nobody can abuse you, nobody can use you, nobody can send you thoughts that are disruptive or distractful or destructive, because you will automatically recognize that this does not come from you, and that you will discard them and realize that this is projected throughout the world by the many billions of people who run around in total ignorance and chaos.
And in fear.
And we have to come to realize that the more the masses do it, the less credibility it has, because you are producing people by the millions and billions on this planet. Throughout history, all the way to the 20th century, you had 1 billion people. Now in the last 100 years, you got 8 billion people. So you're replicating that type of thinking over and over again, and then you wonder why people are running around and doing the same thing.
History likes to repeat.
It's very simple.
But you know, what you're saying, it's extremely important. You have no idea how many people, sometimes they're writing also that in comments, but also on the sessions with me or any other way. We meet those people who are telling, oh, they spread us with something nasty. So everything is said to create that fear, because if we do say, I don't accept that, I do not agree with that, if we are feeling that this is not something that is friendly, so you know that they are unfriendly races as well. But just by knowing
to a certain point.
And
remember that That doesn't mean that they come down here and abduct you. Why would they need to do that? They have the technology to sit in their ship in orbit, and their instrumentation is able to monitor us right now as we talk word for word in separate locations across the globe. They're able to watch us, monitor our body functions, our cellular and atomic functions down to the very most minute. All the scientific information they could ever accumulate without having to step out of the comfort of their own lounge and ship in order to supposedly chase us around like a bunch of chickens. And people don't want to grasp that. They want to say, oh, I've got a problem, so it must be the extraterrestrials. Or my boyfriend or girlfriend dumped me, it must be the extraterrestrials.
Let's blame it on them.
Every single issue. I don't feel good. I've got this and this. It's somebody else's fault. You mentioned the contrail, chemtrail. I deal with that in my
Yes,
book.
we were dealing with those.
I
Yes.
deal with that in my book as well. And people are so totally ignorant. There are, 60,000 airplanes in the sky every day, and they are navigating along highways in the skies in which they travel at different altitudes. That's why you see a plethora. And the exhaust that comes out of the engine has to do with the difference between the temperature of minus 50 some degrees at altitude and the 800 degrees of the engine core. And when the two mix with the condensation of the atmosphere, you get a jet trail. Big deal. And this people are saying, oh, well, we're being sprayed. But none of them logically think that there are 400 and 500 billion tons of pollutants being pumped into the atmosphere every day by developing countries. And they don't think about that causing them any harm. They're worried about an airplane flying over them. I mean, the total imbalance of logical, rational thinking is cataclysmic now.
This is interesting what you're saying, because for a long time I had no idea what to think about chemtrails. For example, Greg Braden recently in the videos also were telling that people are sort of sprayed, like in the food is poisoned. And it actually makes sense, because if you say that now that there is a pollution and even, the vegetables, everything is sprayed and people in the mask on the field are spraying in order. So the insects cannot eat it, but can we eat it? So it's good for us, right? So actually we are in a sense poisoned, but somehow we switch that perception for the certain planes, like, oh, it must be them, not seeing that it's actually spread for real. It's just from other sources, so many sources.
Yes, because think about this logically. And having flown airplanes all my life all over the planet, I can speak of personal experience. Airplanes do not carry extra tanks for anything. They are designed to have people, bags, and gasoline. And every ounce is calculated in order to make projections of distance and fuel conservation and what have you. There are no extra tanks in there where you can load up extra stuff. And I've challenged these chemtrail people and say, if that's true, then why aren't you out at airports taking fuel samples or videoing airplanes being fueled? Because you know that they're not getting any extra. And 60% of all airplanes aren't even in the classification where they have the ability to dump fuel. Only wide body airplanes over the weight of 250,000 pounds can dump fuel at 5,000 pounds per minute in order to get to a landing weight where they can land safely. And so think about this. Let's just use an arbitrary figure, 30,000 feet. Let's say the wind's 100 miles an hour from a certain direction, right? Now, if you would dump something out of that airplane at that speed, where do you think that's going to land? That's going to travel, first of all, at 400 miles an hour out the exhaust, hit 100-mile-an-hour wind, and go somewhere else. Not only that, for every altitude drop there is, the wind changes direction to an entirely different direction and different velocity. By the time that would get to the ground, it would be nothing but vapor, nothing. That's why crop dusting airplanes and agriculture airplanes have to be within 100 feet of the ground. And it's a very dangerous flying because they can catch telephone wires and things like that. And so they have to be down low in order to even have any hope of catching the target that they're after. And people they just don't think. And when you tell them the reality of it, they don't want to know, because that destroys their fantasy, their perception, their imagination. They don't want to be bothered with facts. And so that's another reason why I wrote that book. And so I can understand why it's not so popular, because I have sent it out to many of the news organizations and to a lot of the UFO people in this field. And boy, they were mum. They didn't want to say a word about it. Surprisingly, I sent one to the president, and he acknowledged receiving it. One of the only few officials I have ever seen who did that. And so either here or there or whatever. But the idea here is that we are constantly bombarded. If you think about being bombarded by the chemtrail people, and bombarded by the abduction people, and bombarded by the disclosure people, and bombarded by the grays. And while we're on saying that word, let's define that. The grays are nothing more than robotic construction. They are not sentient beings. Every ship carries a robotic. Older ships have mechanical robotics. Newer ships have androids. And so consequently, these mechanical, non-sentient constructions is what sometimes people run into. But they have let me finish here. They have very limited function. They have very limited program. They do not take you. They do not slice and dice you. They are not designed for that particular function. And so consequently, people who have seen these particular devices, like for instance, in Roswell at the crash that was there were 5 beings. One was alive when they got to the crash site, and we killed that person immediately. The military shot them, dead.
Wow.
Oh, what? There's a nice welcome for you. Welcome to Earth, bang, you're dead. Yeah. But one of the discoveries was a robotic device, very much like a gray. And that doesn't have to have a same human design, because it's not designed to do the same things. And so I think that what has happened is it has become a popularism in order to try to gain acceptance. Look, I saw a gray, so you must accept me now into the community, and this kind of nonsense. Yes. Well, my thinking is exactly the opposite. No, I didn't see a gray. I saw a human being. And everybody goes, oh my God, how is that possible? They always criticize George Adamski. And what did that man do? He told you that intelligent people from other worlds come to visit us to bring us a betterment of understanding. And they hate him here with a passion because of that.
Yeah, because
we really got some psychological issues upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I have so many questions at this point to you, because you are revealing it really to switch our perception and look at from a different perspective, to really question what every one of us is really believing in.
Because the original perspective did not include all the distortions that we have now. There is this concentrated effort to separate the generations from the original occurrences in this field. Because anybody who knows both sides of the history is going to say, hey, wait a minute, it didn't start this way. And why would it be different now? And where have you left that information aside? Why have you left that information aside? Because it's very simple. They don't want you or anybody else to question the narrative that they are promoting now. That's why UFO became UAP. It's nothing more than trying to separate the old in order to get the new. And this is called generational brainwashing.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, what are we dealing with? I believed in chemtrails a very long time, but it's like a belief because I cannot prove it, right? So when you describe it, because we talked about it in previous shows as well, about this, about manipulation with the weather, there was so many topics we already touched there, but it needs really exploring to switch our perception. I always like to listen to every side of whatever people believe or trying to prove me or show me, because only then when we are able to talk about all of these perspectives, we know we're not biased. The worst is when people start to protect their beliefs, not having information, and they start to fight you, like, oh, you, right?
Right. And
But as
that's
long as people can have that conversation, we can actually nicely, we can peacefully, with understanding, show what is actually polluting our planet, where those diseases are coming from, to not blame it on the pilots and those, because it's like a transference of the attention, that we look up like, oh, it must be that, and we don't look down, that the crops are sprayed by the poison and we eat them. That's far more, something that we should actually pay attention to and switch. But other thing is, all those people who experience, because I don't say that anyone's experience traumatic. I have numbers of weird experiences in dreams, conferring with other people. So there is something to it. I'm just looking for the best understanding, because sometimes in the dreams, I already discovered that it can happen that if a group of people or someone or something can implement you other, like, memories, you can be dreamed up into the field of something else. And we have a number of those exercises in psychology. So when you tap into someone's feelings, in family constellation does that the person suddenly becomes someone's father in the group session, and starts to perceive ancestors' feelings. It's very, very real. So there is something going on with all those abductions experiences. Something is going on with people. Now I'm wondering, because it's also a psychological thing, that it's possible to bring hypnosis to the wider to the crowd, to the wider range of people. People can be hypnotized, and they do remember memories they don't have. They did not experience.
And they can also be compounded with memories that never existed.
Exactly.
That is the danger of hypnosis. Hypnosis becomes a very highly volatile platform for suggestion based upon who is suggesting that. So in other words, what has been said is that if the hypnosis performer has a bias, and they say to you, instead of what happened Tuesday, they say to you, what happened when you were abducted Tuesday, they have planted the seed of that false narrative within your brain in order to allow the imagination to take over and to construct that. And so that hypnosis, everybody wants to say, oh, look, the hypnotic people are doing such good work. And in some respects, they're doing the entirely exact opposite. And so one has to be cognizant. Why would you willingly give up your own cognizance? It doesn't, you are not any less able to have memories of past lives and past associations while you are cognizant in yourself. And so we seem to think, well, we have to suppress something in order to come up with something else. Isn't it better to educate from the beginning so that we can have these memories naturally on our own and not have the jurisdiction
implemented
of somebody implementing something or implanting something? And while I still have the thought in my head, yes, seeding the clouds does happen. We have helped, and there's nothing wrong with that, because anybody who knows water and rain understands that that rain does not manifest itself without a particle to collect itself to. And so it takes a particle of dust, and as it goes up and down in the cloud there vertically, it becomes heavier and heavier as it continues to accumulate water until finally it gets heavy enough to fall out of the bottom as precipitation and rain. And so in order to try to get rain in areas that were very arid or have the that's change in the climate because affect crops and livability and stuff like that, we have tried to seed clouds. That's not the same thing as dumping a whole bunch of toxic chemicals on everybody. And that's not to say that the military or other organizations haven't at one time experimented with dropping chemicals upon people. In the book, I admit to that, and I give a couple of cases that are well known. And so consequently, but that doesn't mean that every jet trail that goes across the top of your head by the thousands is somebody else trying to spray something on you. And then you can use that as an excuse and say, oh, well, you know.
Have a headache. Yeah, because that's what people started to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they say that, you know, it affects them psychology wise. And, you know, they go out and do mean and terrible or violent acts because of that. And that's all because of the degradation of our own personality. It doesn't have to do with anything else. And so, but getting back to this, remember what you and many people do not understand is the power of the mind. The power of your mind and its ability to project its thoughts is immense. And so consequently, when you hold this thought in your mind like this about, oh, well, if somebody's, you know, what about the horrific thing about the so-called abduction or this or that, you can self-create circumstances that your mind is willing to accept as its own.
That's true.
So we have to be very, very careful with these, with the unchecked and undisciplined mind. We are creating things on our, I can use my own mind to create projections, or what you would call thought forms. The Egyptians did it all the time. They would send their enemies thought forms in order to scare the holy hell out of them. And that's why the Egyptians kept so many cats, because cats will recognize the thought form energy, jump up and run through it and dissipate it. And so consequently, that whole thing of what we would like to call black arts is nothing more than a manifestation of our own mind. We have so little comprehension of what the capabilities of what we can do ourselves. And we do it arbitrarily and oftentimes in ignorance. So you cannot just take dreams and say, oh, they have some significance. The significance can be, did you get enough sleep? Did you get enough rest? Are you having relationship issues? Did you see something on TV that promoted that into your brain? You can go through a whole genre, a list of things that can impact you to create unnerving dreams. That doesn't mean that every dream has a specific reason or a specific meaning to it. It has to do with the conditions of the mind and the person at that particular moment. Now, can some things have greater significance? Of course. But boy, you got to know what you're doing to be able to designate the difference. And the more we live in a mind society and the more we accept a mind type of expression, the less we are getting closer to our true selves and farther away by becoming one of the sheep.
Yes, you actually, now we go in a little bit into different subject, because dreams topic is actually my topic. I'm writing books about it also, but it's very important what you just said, because it's very true. If the mind is not at ease and you are recycling what is going on in your life, you cannot have clarity in your dreams. You cannot even understand the messages. Everything is chaotic. And people need to actually work this out in reality before they even have access. The same with regression sessions, the same with, you know, visions. If people have not clear intention because it was implemented by other people, so they don't even know what they want. They think they want something, but it's not their wish, but it's their parents, for example, wish. My job is to decipher that and check it, because if this is the wrong intention, they actually harm themselves even more. And what you just mentioned, I call it as a black magic on yourself. Those negative words, those negative projections, those negative interpretation of what's going on, it's actually black magic on yourself. So creating also thought forms. Yes, in some aspects, there are groups of people who do black magic. They're sending thought forms in order to scare someone or whatever they want to do. I don't know. I don't care. So some people can perceive it, and you're very right. The cats are like jumping that time. Every time something like that happens, people report to me, and I also had a cat. So the cat is like jumping, like this energy is hitting, but then it's also the clarity is clearing it. So it's something very, it takes actually great deal of consciousness and questioning our thoughts, our emotions, because in fact, even our emotions can be coming from someone else.
Sure,
It
absolutely.
happens
Most of the
so
time
many
it is.
times. Most,
Yes,
95%, I'm telling you, like, don't take
absolutely.
it personal, is somebody else's.
Hmm. Absolutely. Once again, know thyself, and then you
Exactly.
will discard that which is not yours, and it is not yours to react. Look at how easily we manipulate people. Um, if we want disharmony and discourse, we can easily manipulate people to do things that they normally may not even think about doing, right? Let's say I want to mobilize a group of the population in order to riot or do this or do that. Well, that's very simple. You grab a sample of them and you do something nasty to a woman, a child, or what have you, and all of a sudden, and
And
you
point
wave
that,
and you wave a certain flag, and all of a sudden everybody's ready to go to war over something that they have no idea about, because we don't value our own thoughts and our own thinking. That takes too much effort. And so the bottom line is the responsibility goes upon each one of us in order to maintain things. My issue with hypnotism is those who are looking for an easy way out. Hypnotize so you don't smoke, hypnotize so you don't eat, blah, blah, blah. But what you're doing is you're giving up a portion of your own will and individual thought to
somebody else.
somebody else. And
Yeah.
that does not benefit your situation, because as soon as that somebody else is no longer exercising their control over you, then you find yourself more and more dependent upon having them around you in order to survive. And so you cannot give up yourself in the process. Whereas if you learn the hard way through disciplining of your mind and yourself, then you're more apt to benefit individually wise, so that you can kick these particular habits that you find destructive away. You can't rely on outside influence in order to always take care of your problems. That doesn't work.
That's what you just said is crucial, because so many people believe someone else as a specialist. And anytime, like it's happened so many times on the private sessions with me, that someone trusted someone and not only lost money, because that's the least, but all of a sudden the company goes down all of a sudden, because the certain, like almost like this thought forms portion of energy that other specialist who's maybe doing black magic or whatever is probably affecting this person. So to undo it, it of course takes time to bring the power back to the person that went to that specialist, because it has to be another, believing in the self first. Otherwise, yeah, but that's like a huge another topic. Let's go back to your friends.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's go back to your friends. I have so many questions too, so let's hope we manage some of them. There was something about Elon Musk. Like, did he receive that technology? So is he doing this blacking out our sun, technology? Where is he getting that technology from? Is it possible that some aliens races are giving to him? What's going on? What do you think?
Who is it that you're talking about?
Elon Musk, like he was the one that he wanted.
Elon Musk. Oh,
Yes.
no. I think that in Mr. Musk's case, he has very cognizant memories of where he came from, and where he comes from. They are living a far different society, and he carries that within him. and he tries to promote it here because that is what is naturally more comfortable for him. And so, it's we've had so-called captains of industries, as they described in the ancient times, giants of people. That doesn't mean they're 20 feet tall. It means they're giant in stature and in accommodations and in what they perform. I mean, it's like, that would be like saying that when I watch the football team, the New York Giants, that everyone is supposed to be 10 feet tall, which is absolutely ridiculous. And this is nothing more than wordplay and syntax used by people in this field in order to confuse the subject any further. But Mr. Musk he does what he does, and that's about that. I don't concern myself with that. Once again, you do what you feel that you can, and I don't worry about those outside the realm of my association.
Some people are scared that he's going to manage with that sun, and sun is, of course, supporting us. So
nobody can manipulate the sun. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, that's absolute garbage. And if you think about it, once again, that's due to the ignorance that we have scientifically. We don't teach the science in schools anymore the way that we should. We don't promote understanding about space and our planet and the universe. And if we did, then people wouldn't buy into these type of accusations. I mean, how easy it is to throw out accusations about something when you're not required to substantiate and prove what you say. You just let it flippantly out of your mouth and allow the destruction to ensue afterwards. And that happens every day, everywhere, whether it's politics, religion, or anything else. And so, I think that it's best not to even participate in that. Why participate in destructiveness and uncertainty? If you want a better world and a better understanding, you got to stand for it and you've got to promote it. And so it seems like that, particularly in this field, the exact opposite is happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another one. There are many channels, and people also ask about it. To believe it or not, that thanks to internet and artificial intelligence, some of the people can actually sort of channel or communicate with alien races, and they have a direct channel from those alien races through internet. So what do you think about it? The question
they make any claim they want to. Once again, how easy it is to make claims that you don't have to prove, you don't have to provide facts for, you don't have to do anything. It's if I chased every ridiculous accusation, whether it's interdimensionalism and time travel and all these other fantasies, all you do is spend your entire life running behind these unsubstantiated, unprovable claims, and you get nowhere. So all it does is tie up into greater confusion and greater whatever is greater that there is. It's to me, it's a waste of time. They always say to me, Glenn, did you read so and so's book? I said, hell no.
Yeah.
Why would I want to waste my time? I mean, I can pick up a book and look at in the back and see what's being described. Somebody beamed up, in the garbage. Somebody taken and dissected and examined or probed or whatever, in the garbage. I don't waste my time with things that I know aren't true. And whether other people like it or agree with me, well, I tell you what, I could care less.
I think people don't have such an ability to differentiate, because not everybody studies science from the early age, and not our education system is not teaching people to differentiate and to think, but to follow blindly and repeat. Even the tests and exams are designed like that. But what you are telling is already the answer for everyone who is confused. Once you listen to some programs and you're experiencing confusion, the next step will be hypnotizing you and manipulating you. And some of the files, like MK Ultra, actually talk about it, right? Did you hear about this?
MJ12
Mhm.
is there's a very small part that's true, and the rest of it is totally manipulated.
Tell us.
And so, so it's so
Please.
because it's an easy avenue. Think about this psychologically. If you sat for a minute and said to yourself, how would I easily promote an agenda and confuse people? The easiest thing to do is give them something which is piggybacked on something else.
Exactly.
They've done this with Roswell. They've done this with MJ12. They've done this with a number of studies and documentations and releases, because they want ultimately to keep the truth from you. They ultimately want to keep any global significant change from you. And so consequently, they use all these little things, the war in Ukraine, the this and that, so many small little petty conflicts elsewhere on the globe. All this does is fuel the military industrial complex and the sale of arms and the money in the pockets of the people who own these particular complexes and the stocks and things like this. Once again, a continuation of the same old agenda on this world by those who control the money and the power. And so, don't let yourself get pulled into it. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. They can have peace. They can have peace anywhere in the world you want. If you take away the weapons, then what are they going to fight with? Throwing stones at each other, right? And so we sell them military hardware, and then we go, oh my God, what do you mean they used it? Well, what are they supposed to do with it? And isn't it funny that the people who are so poor that are having trouble feeding themselves manage to find somehow enough weapons and ammunitions in order to keep on fighting?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So once again, know yourself and don't become pulled into it and distracted by it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
there's so many now new YouTube channels, or actually not new, they're like raising, but many specialists, they claim they are former CIA agents, and they are like huge. There's like 1 million viewers on their channel. And I was always wondering what's going on there, because CIA would never show the hidden files to the public, especially in America, so other countries could just, learn from that. So now they openly, they talk about MK Ultra. They talk about hypnosis, manipulation. How is it possible to hypnotize a person to kill someone else? How that was used during the wars,
That's easy. We've been doing that since the 50s.
Yeah. So they say some of it, but is it everything so true? Because of course this knowledge exists, and there were actually scientific. There was scientific research how in China, how they were telling like what is the procedure to be friendly first, those Americans, and they were converted into Chinese, army. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the manipulation of the masses of the people has always been a pastime of those who have power and want to play games with it. And the more people that we continue to overproduce, in my opinion, overpopulation is our greatest threat. But we continue to overproduce. And so consequently, I believe I saw the statistic somewhere where we produce 20 million more people are born every year than die. So after 10 years, you got 200 million people. And And after 20 years, you have almost 1 billion people. So you're adding 1 billion people to the roster every 20, 25 years. And so the availability of fresh water and sustainability going to become a very uncomfortable situation, which I'm glad I will not be here for.
Ouch. Okay, so now what your friends from the stars told you, maybe they told you something like a message from humanity, something that you can remember, something about our future, because that doesn't sound so optimistic.
Our future is what we make it. Nobody's going to step in and force us to do something else. That doesn't exist. And a lot of the New Age people are preaching, oh, the age of Aquarius and this and that, and this benevolent force is going to come down and change everything automatically for you, and so on and so on. Blah, blah, blah. That's garbage. That doesn't happen because that shows a total ignorance of how creation works. Creation works by giving each one a level of understanding, or better yet, it gives you the opportunity to attain a level of understanding, and each person is different across the board, and you just can't take a group of people who are not willing or unable to comprehend this massive change and smash them into it. You can't put a round peg into a square hole and smash it in and expect it to work. And so nature would never do that. Never do that. Nature gives you the ability and the grace in order to progress and to understand and to accumulate experience so that you may elevate the person that is inside of you. And nobody forces you into it. You will never get greater resistance than somebody coming to force you to do something. That's the only time we unite. And that's what we're being told now, too, in this disclosure program, that comes from space. It's not only non-human, but it's a threat to our national security. Well, lo and behold, oh boy, that means we have to build more weapons and arm ourselves even more and let the military industrialists and those who control it get more and more richer until you have a system on this planet where you have two tiers, ones that have and the others that don't. And so
it doesn't go in a good direction with everything what's going on with those electronic IDs, with a more power, less and less freedom and privacy for people. It's like it's built up, but for some reason you are doing what you're doing. You had a contact with those friends from the stars. And of course, if I would be them, I probably wouldn't like to live here, even seeing what's going on with Earth and how misinformation is spread, how this manipulation, hypnosis is going on, in order for some people benefit from it and actually send other to war, right? Maybe it serves a purpose. Maybe it's for people to wake up and unite and not let it. Maybe that's the reason. But what your friends were telling you when they were connecting with you, how you felt around them, what self-belief, what belief they had, what they were talking about with you, if you could.
They talk about the experience of being able to be exposed to universal principle and universal knowledge and creation. The more they travel space, and this one group that I was talking to had traveled already to about 15 different systems, and all that they have learned, they feel that they have an obligation to pass on. And whether we want to accept it or not is totally up to ourselves, because once again, they understand that by nature, the ability to accept or to embrace a greater understanding is based upon our own level of thinking at this particular time. And they have found that we have gravitated to an ego type of existence and not a consciousness type of existence. And the more we follow the ego, the more self-destructive we become, because the ego thinks of self. I want more, give me more, and so on and so on. And I can have everything. And all this other stuff that is totally irrelevant, because you can't have everything, and you can't have more and more and more, because there's only a finite amount, and the more you take, somebody else has to give up until they get tired of it and say, I'm going to take it back. And so we live a mind existence here, and that can be very self-destructive. That's why we go through ups and downs in civilization. Basically, our civilized areas in the world and societies, we're lucky if they last 400-500 years at most. And so then there's this immense crash, and then we start this whole process all over again, because we just are not willing to step away. We tell people, well, you only live once, so you better grab all you can. Well, what a convenient notion to get what you want.
Manipulation too.
It's manipulation. And so this just drives people harder and harder. And even though the truism that you can't take it with you is very self-evident, that doesn't prevent the people and their greed and their self-righteousness and what have you. And so you are surrounded by that. And so then you wonder why you see more and more people claiming the same thing or replicating the same thing. They're only getting it from the one who stands next to them, and the one after that, and the one after that. And so we have this belief that just because more people do it, it must be right. And I happen to be of the other thinking that the more people do it, it must be wrong.
There's also this implemented consuming, not only now buying more stuff, having more, but also more information without time to actually reflect what's true and what's not true, without questioning, which is, the newest research said that AI actually using ChatGPT makes her more stupid, because we don't use
it doesn't surprise me, because once again, we give up a greater portion of ourselves and our willpower and our personality, and allow something else to think and to act for us. And we think that that's a great thing. We do less and less ourselves. AI can do this, and they can do this for you and this for you. I have no problem with technology, that it's of a benefit. But boy, you better know what you're doing to make sure it is of benefit, and not just benefit for a select few and the rest of them, well, too bad. So we have to look very comprehensively at what we embrace.
Why do you think those I call them friends from the stars?
Yeah.
Why they chose Adamski Foundation to pass you this information among so many people? Because apparently they tried already with governments and didn't last, didn't work out very much.
Well, they got to try it with somebody. Somebody always asks the question, why GA? And my answer is, why not? I mean, George was an extremely open, perceptive individual. He had already been approached earlier in his career. People have little to no comprehension of the real story behind George Adamski. And then we have organizations like this one in the Netherlands who just make stuff up in order to give themselves prominence, because they're trying to take over. And so, there's this constant infighting going on, not only between the people who want to proclaim him wrong, but then they want to proclaim credit for it. But long story short, George was the ideal individual, and they picked him, and he proved to be a good pick. Others that they contacted were not. And so a large number of the so-called original contactees had little to no contact. Some of them had a singular experience and made up the rest. Some of them just made it up to begin with. And so consequently, that they tried that as well. And so, and they contacted other people in other countries, the twin sisters in Norway, the lady in South Africa. They worked themselves around trying to figure out who was trustworthy. And somebody
Yeah.
asked me, what do you think is the greatest attribute that they're looking for? And
Mm.
I say trustworthy, because unfortunately, we are not trustworthy as a people. Our word means nothing. Our intent means nothing. We change it on a moment's notice anytime our own self becomes involved. And so, in order to find somebody trustworthy on this planet is
Mm.
a heck of a lot of work.
So they must have been really disappointed, but somehow they succeeded. They found few people on
Mhm,
this planet.
mhm.
Did they connect all of you so you can actually make sure? We had that conversation privately number of times, and I think it's time to mention it publicly about protecting of people's life work, how to protect so the future generations will how to make sure that future generations will have an access. Because yeah, sometimes I'm losing faith in humankind, and sometimes I'm believing so much, like if not we, then who? But of course, there are people and there are people. There are greedy people, and there are those who just want to live, but also they want to make sure that they complement by their presence on Earth. They complement the Earth and other people. So how to make sure to protect this kind of knowledge, the foundation, the people who have something important, they gather information, the real science. So in approaching times, whatever comes next years, 20, 30, 40, 50 to us, to make sure that this knowledge won't be lost. Did I
Well,
say something?
well, two things to say here. A friend of mine who is a who with whom I have had a great deal of past contact with, was invited by a group of his space contacts to go off world for 2 years, and he went. And so it shows that there is still some activity. And I told him, I said, in 2 years' time, if you're given the opportunity to stay where you're at, don't come back. There's nothing to come back for. And why get torn away from an environment where people are living in harmony and looking towards a collective advancement? Come back to this utter chaos and this other zoo of expression here. And so
Okay.
things like that are still happening. As far as maintaining, we maintain what we can while we can. I'm not worried about what happens after I pass away. How can I? I did the job that I could my entire lifetime, and I put out as much information as I could for those who feel that there's something to it. I recently got contacted by a military pilot who traveled very high. He was part of the program where the aircraft travel in the upper atmosphere up 80,000 feet, and that he had seen several craft,
Mhm.
and so he talked to another pilot friend of mine who I had discussions with, and so now the three of us are conferencing and talking to each other about these circumstances. Little by little, things domino here and there. You do the best you can, you know, and whatever I leave to posterity, well, that's going to be it. And I'm certainly not leaving everything I know or everything I have. That's not anybody's business. So I have been a caretaker, and I've done it relatively well, I think. Some people have accused me of being a gatekeeper and holding back information. And to that, my answer is hell yes. I've done exactly that. Because just like a parent doesn't tell a child everything, I don't tell everybody everything I know either. It's not for them. It's
Your
based
private.
upon, once again, the comprehensiveness of the people that you're dealing with. So But on the opposite side, I've released so much and provided so much that if that doesn't do the trick, nothing else will.
Yeah, and this.
Why worry about it? I don't. I've
Yeah,
reached a point in my life where
you did your job.
I did my job, and I have been dependable. I have never sold out. I would never sell out anything for money, and I believe that I have fallen under the auspices of being trustworthy, and that's why I think I continue to have interaction in this field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's it. You know, I believe in what I know and have experienced myself, and I understand for a lot of people that is not an easy thing because they haven't experienced it and they haven't been exposed to it. And I don't judge them for that, but I try to point out the pitfalls of what is being promoted out there, and so they don't fall into this sea of confusion where they don't understand anything and nothing of progressive ability is available.
Mm-hmm.
So
well said. Well said with everything. I don't have nothing to add to it, only to ask anyone who is listening to that to pass this information so we can make sure that the true information spreads out there, and those who are listening can differentiate between what is false and how to actually differentiate. When you feel confusion about something, then check it out. And also I recommend not only this book, but you wrote so many books, like we show some of them right now. My Glenn is reading another book because I got more.
Here's one of them that we have revised,
Yes,
and put
yes.
out as well, Behind the Flying Saucer Mystery 2, and that is also with the publishers for the French, Spanish, and Italian translation and publication as well, and so there, you know, we have probably. Well, we have George's books, Inside the Spaceships and Flying Saucers Have Landed, and that book, Flying Saucers Fell Well. We have my father's 2 books, and we have my book. So there's material available.
Get a copy for your friend. The Christmas is coming. And also keep it in your library for those future generation. I do believe that if someone is keeping the books in the library, sometimes we find such a treasure when we go to our, family houses sometimes, and there are books that someone wrote and people were not even known those times. And there's some true knowledge, some wisdom, but here actually you have facts, so you can really find out for yourself. You don't have to believe Glenn, he actually proved it.
No.
And also please do not forget, because I'm always forgetting about this part when I need to say that, please subscribe to the channels of here, Joanna Pilatowicz, and also I have an additional 2 channels in case whatever is going on with YouTube, but also to Glenn Steckling channel. He has his own channel. You can also connect with him. You can also write him. Your books are available on Amazon or directly from you?
They're the eBay. My newest book is from Amazon. When you go in there, you'll see that the original publisher is called Blurb, BLURB.com. And they're the ones who produce the book to order. So when you order, they will print you up a brand new one and get it to you. But they have 3 listings, a hardcover, a softcover, and then there's a listing for Amazon. And it's a different price because Amazon tacks on a 30% surcharge. So Mr. Bezos can make a lot more money. And so you will see the 3 different price structures. Just take the cheapest one. And I have some of them available on eBay that if orders come through, then I can fill those myself and sign books if people want autographs on them. And so or contact me via email through the website Adamski, ADAMSKI Foundation, all one word, .com, adamskifoundation.com, and you will see our extensive website. Has a lot of information on there, and so I encourage people to take a look. But the YouTube channels show the films and the photos and many other things, and so that's where the, shall we say, where the oomph is into the what we release.
Yeah, you actually sent me, I posted a short video of the object, flying object. It's also on my channel. I posted it here too. You sent it to me so people can see it. And also for my lovely Polish people out there, that you're going to see this afterwards, and you're going to have a subtitles in Polish, because now AI can do that for us, and that helps. If you have any questions to Glenn, please write it in the comment section. You can write it in Polish. I'm going to ask him next time. Hopefully we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to ask him those questions, because it's very, very important. Step by step, we build up a very strong structure that nothing can actually hypnotize us, manipulate us, and so on. There is so many things I'm learning past years. Like, the time really has a sense of speeding up. Like, we have to process so many information because we are bombarded by this artificial now information. I don't know if you noticed, but even if you go on Instagram, almost every post is not real. It's not.
Yeah, I don't do Instagram. I don't do tweets.
You're lucky. Don't do that.
No, I don't waste my time with that. And the funny thing is, I'm also partly Polish from my father's side. They came from a town in Poland, and so I have some background. I can't speak the language, but so I have some affinity there.
But you have Polish roots, so welcome, because that is also not a coincidence that we bring you to the Polish people more. Polish roots. Maybe your star friends had also idea about that. Yeah, because Polish people are special people, but they know about it. So please ask me, and I will ask Glenn, or you can also write it in English, maybe, if you have a question to him, and we'll be very happy to do another video, another meeting. Then we have a reason to do it faster, not after years.
Sure.
And because it's great to have a book, but it's nothing so alive when you have actually another human being talking about it, and you have this vivid experience. It's like we can experience it through you when you talk about it. Myself, I have multiple more questions, because I would like to get to know your friends. And if your friends from the stars are hearing us, can you please make it that we can meet with Glenn and you guys somewhere?
I can't arrange that. They do that themselves. Anybody who claims that they can draw the space people to them, that is not true. That they decide, they determine the advantages and disadvantages. They very closely study the people in the situation. Yes. They do not want to create more problems than they solve, and they know our mentality much better than we do ourselves. So that's not to say that they're infallible, because we can be very tricky, but they make those decisions, and I leave that up to them, and I don't question their methods or their motives. I have learned over the many decades what they stand for and the benefits that they bring.
So now officially and publicly, I'm inviting your friends to the contact, and when that is possible, also with the presence of Glenn, because I'm feeling that he would also welcome visit from you. But of course, it's your decision to do that. But feel invited. I'm inviting you, wherever you are.
Okay.
I can only say that we have in a quantum physics non-locality, so I'm sure they are hearing us.
Oh yeah, they monitor. Whenever the subject is brought up about George and the contacts and the original history and things like that, they keep an eye on them, and they keep on an eye on the people who are listening and what they say. They like to, like a poll, they like to gather the measure of receptivity and what people are thinking, and whether pro or con, it doesn't make any difference. And so I would safely bet that that they keep an eye on things.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I said it all. So thank you very, very much for being here and taking time. And I also thank you, all of you who were today with us. I know it's in English, but Annika, you were keep on going, and I saw whatever you wrote here, everything almost you wrote here. And thank you for commenting, for being with us here. And for the rest, we of course wait under the video, but also many thanks to your alien friends, to your friends from the stars, because in the spirit, they are also with us. And
yes, that's true. Well, we all can be thankful for something.
Yeah. Okay. So one more time, thank you all with thankfulness. Until the next time. Bye, everyone.